Hey everyone, welcome to this section. In this section, we are going to discuss regarding the Palo Alto Firewall URL filtering profile, which is kind of an important topic for all of us to know. So, URL filtering profile, basically, it's a security feature which is part of your Content ID inspection, um, and it will control the user to access any right web content by categorizing the various URLs, and it will enforce policies based on those categories, right? Whether the users are allowed to access those category of URLs or not. Okay, so basically it works on custom categories. Also, it can work on dynamic categorization of URLs. So let's say I have got a user which is sitting on the inside zone. It is trying to send some sort of traffic to the outside zone, and it is trying to reach some sort of URLs over here, say www.facebook.com, bbcworld.com, certain URLs, right? And now it's your responsibility as a IT engineer to understand that if those are the valid URLs for that department user to work with. So if they can access those URLs, if it is all good, then allow that. Otherwise, you can block those. So yeah, let's talk about the URL filtering, how to configure it, and then we'll take some key points as we are doing it so far. So let's say to work with URL filtering, we ensure that we must have a security policy that allows the traffic from inside to outside, or from trust to untrust, which we do have it. Okay, so I have an open policy which is under the policy section. So you can see that I've got a policy from trust to untrust. I've got a policy given here. So let's say I remove that untrust over here and trust from here. Okay, so I've got a policy from trust to untrust, and let's remove that 123 for time being. Okay, so from 10 dot inside subnet to any IP on the application, any IP on the destination, and also any applications are allowed. All right, action is allowed. Perfect. So click on OK there. I will be attaching the URL filtering policy. So to configure that, you need to go to the objects tab. Okay, and one more thing is, before you work with the URL filtering configuration, one more thing is you must have a device certificate. Ensure that the end users are going to use the Palo Alto Firewall certificates. So yep, I have made a device certificate and I've pushed it to the Palo Alto Firewall. So basically from the Palo Alto Firewall to, let us say, to this Win server over here, we have done that. So if I look into that particular Windows server, and let's see if it is using the Palo Alto Firewall certificate. So the certificate name which I had was PAFW1ZBN. all right, that was a certificate name. Okay, so in your Chrome, I want to see that certificate has been imported properly or not. Just wait for a second for the page to load. So under this three dots, you can go to settings, and from here you can search for certificates, which will be part of security. When you scroll down, manage device certificate section, click on the trusted root certificate authorities, and over here you can look for the PAFW1ZBN. it is available here. Okay, so good. So let's say if I try to reach facebook.com and see the certificate, it's from DigiCert. Sometimes it does not show. Say if I look for ebay.com, or let's say some malicious websites of gambling, what do I see over here is the certificate of the Palo Alto Firewall. I can see that And likewise, if I want to hit some sort of malicious X, some sort of gambling sites, I can see the certificate also for Palo Alto. Looks good. All right, so yep, I'm using those certificates, right? And I'm allowed to reach any shopping category, social networking category based websites, you can see. Plus also I can reach to any malicious gambling category websites, right? So if I look for say BBC or say CNN.com, which is a news category pages, I can also look there. Yeah, connection is secure, certificate is valid. Okay, anyway, CNN is not using ours. Once if I look for stricttimes.com, say Times of India, okay, so some pages it is not, but yeah, most of them it is. I can see that. All right, so which is good. Let's go ahead and configure the URL filtering over here. So what we can do is we can go to the policies. Okay, so policy has been configured. Inside towards the traffic has been allowed. So we can go to the objects, and you can see that under security profile we have got URL filtering profile. So you can select that, and by default you can see there is a default URL filtering profile, which is a predefined profile. It's available, and you can see that it has listed certain categories of URLs as allowed, certain categories under alert conditions, certain categories under block conditions. But if you want, we can also allow a certain category of URLs under continue or override conditions. All right, so yeah, you can actually select that, and you can clone it, right? And you can add, let's say this is my URL filtering profile 1, something like that. Okay, and these are the predefined categories of URLs that is available. And say for example abortion, abuse, drugs, adult, alcohol and tobacco, right? Education institution. Yeah, for example, if I search for social networking, right, let's say site is allowed. But if I want to block it, so I've got multiple actions that I can take: alert, allow, block, continue, override. So if I do a continue, that means it will be allowed. A pop-up will be given to the user saying that, hey, it is against the company rights, but still if you want to continue to this particular URL, so if you click on to continue button, then you can be allowed to access, right? So continue. Override is another option where you have to submit the password. So if, let us say, you're trying to reach any social networking page, let's say if you are allowed, then you must have been given a password. So when you enter the password, you can access the social networking page. Okay, likewise alert, allow, block, you understood that. So let's say for I write for social networking as block. Let's say for any sort of gambling category of website, it is already block, which is good. Let's say for media, streaming media, say it is YouTube, so I want to block it. Okay, let's say for news category, I want to say continue for news category. Okay, let's say sports category, I want to say override for sports category. Okay, so you can see that I've made certain definitions over here. So I've got an override category, I've got a continue category, right? And you can see the values respectively. So in continue category, it is the news section. Under block category, you have got the respective categories as block, social networking, streaming media, those are part of block. Gambling is part of block categories. Under override categories, you have one, which is that sports category pages. All right, And similarly, if you want to create some custom URL, you can do that. So right under this custom object section, you have got a URL category, so click on that and you can add a custom URL category of your choice. All right, so let's say this is custom URL profile 1, something like that. Description is always an optional stuff. Type can be a category match or a URL list. Okay, so yeah, so a URL list, let's say I can add certain sites, let's say CNN.com, or let's say ESPN.com, right? Let's say timesofIndia.com, right? Let's say Twitter, it is x.com, so it is Twitter, yeah, or let's say I just tried Twitter. Okay, so yeah, so I can define those categories of websites under the custom URL categories and click on OK, and you can see that under the URL filtering profile it will automatically appear. So if I select my URL filtering profile, you can see now you have got predefined categories and you've got a custom categories. Under custom category, it is the custom URL profile is appearing, but any action is not yet taken. So let's say I want to block to those actions, right? So yeah, so click on OK there. Okay, and let's say so regarding that passwords, you need to do what? You need to go to the device section over here under setup. You have got this content ID section, and you can see that you have got a page. You have got some settings that you can change for URL filtering. So you can change the settings for URL continue timeout, or URL admin override timeout, admin lockout timeout. Yeah, so you can look for those settings if you want to change that. And like for example, if for certain destination website, let us say for ESPN.com, you have given the action as override, that means the user who is trying to access ESPN.com, that user must supply the password so in order to access that particular page. So in that case, you have to define the define this particular password over here. Let's say this is just for fun, Cisco123 is the password. Cisco123 is the password. Okay, and if you want, you can add TLS SSL service profile, right? Click on OK there. All right, so and make sure this password you share it to the right right audience. Okay, so once it is done, yep, so make sure that you go and attach this particular profile to your security policy. So I go to the security policy, I go to my action tab, I have URL filtering, I select that my URL filtering profile here, and I select OK, and then I click on the commit option. So let all the commit process takes place, and then we'll verify the respective URLs which you have allowed a blog to continue. Let's see with those. So in the meantime, you can also so Palo Alto relies on the PanDB or Bright Cloud for URL filtering. So you can search for Palo Alto URL check. Okay, so this is one of the URL filtering test site that you can use for checking. So for example, if you just type let us say Amazon.com, if you look for search motorcycles, so let's say it's some motorcycle stuff. All right, so let's search it. So it says that Amazon.com is category is shopping, it's low risk, yeah, you can see some descriptions over here. Yeah, likewise you can test any of the website, for example YouTube, any URL, you can come and test it. Okay, yeah, let's search it. Yes, you can see that it is part of this URL is part of the streaming media. It gives a category, it gives a description, and also it gives, you know, the comparative websites as well. All right, likewise there is another one which is for bright URL. Search Palo Alto. So you can see, yeah, so you can see URL or IP lookup from Bright Cloud Threat Intelligence. Okay, so it is also been used by Palo Alto. So you can search for, let us say www, let us say Facebook, like that, facebook.com. Okay, look up. So it say its web reputation is trustworthy. So yeah, it's part of social networking as a web category, and you can see the domain name, when it was created, what are the name servers, FQDNs, and etc, etc. So likewise, you know, you can actually go there and check it. All right, so my configuration is committed successfully. So now you can go back to the WinServer VM, and let's say that if I try to reach facebook.com, okay, so probably it will work with the caches. So let's open up incognito tab and try to look into the respective URLs. Let's say I go to timesofindia.com, the news site. Let's say I go to espn.com. okay, so it says web page is blocked. Probably, okay, I'm going to a continue option over here because probably I've given that. So if I supply that, sorry, I actually see that as an override. So if I supply the password, which was Cisco123, then I can click on continue and I can access that particular web page. That was part of the override section, right? So yeah, it is working. So for example, you go to youtube.com. okay, certain things, you know, based on certificate stuff, it might not work. Yeah, you go to ebay.com, shopping categories. Yeah, when you test it out, gambling, which is 888.com, it's blocked. Yeah, so you can see that, you know, it's working for most of the things. It's a lab environment, so yeah, so of course, you know, there's dependencies for the certificate stuff. Yeah, so yep, all good so far. I believe you understand the concept of URL filtering, and let's go ahead and, you know, make some key points regarding URL filtering, and then we will look into the next topic. So first of all, regarding a URL filtering profile, so it's URL filtering profile. So as I've told you, in a Palo Alto Network firewall, so URL filtering profile is part of a security feature. So it's a security feature that controls user access to web content by categorization of URLs, okay, and enforcing policies based on those categories. All right, so how it works, you know, the firewall, as I've told you, it uses a cloud delivered service that maintains an extensive continuous updated database of URL categories such as social media, news, adult content, etc. So when a user accesses a website, the firewall will determine what is the category of that particular website, okay, and yeah, then you can go for the policy enforcement, right? So first thing first is, the firewall can list those categorization of those websites that is available. Okay, second is policy enforcement. That's one of the important point. So in policy enforcement, what happens is, based on the determined category of that URL that the user is trying to reach, the firewall will apply the respective action which is defined in the URL filtering profile, and there can be multiple actions that you can take. So one of them is block, where it completely denies the access to the website. We can allow it, so it permits access, but it will log that particular event. It will alert, so it allows the access but generates an alert for monitoring purpose. And also you have got an option to continue, which means that provides a warning to the users, and it will allow them to proceed if they choose it. Okay, so number 3 will be what are the key features you have. So futuristic wise, we can do granular control. So that means administrators can configure policies to allow, block, or warn certain users based on URL categories, or might be some custom URLs or any individual URLs, right? You can work with custom URL categories, as I've told you, custom URL categories, right? You can also enforce something called as safe search enforcement, right? Safe search enforcement, which means the profile can enforce safe search settings on popular search engines, adding an extra layer of content control to it. Number 6 could be having dynamic updates. So the URL categorization database that Palo Alto Firewall keeps is continuously updated, which ensures that any emerging new web content is classified accurately and without any manual intervention. Okay, the 7th option could be visibility and reporting. Visibility and reporting which means that detailed logs and reports will provide the insights into the user web activity, which will help with compliance and security audits, right? So if you go to your Palo Alto Firewall 1, if you look for monitor, if you look for under logs the URL filtering logs, right, you can check the different categories of web pages that the user has tried to access, which policy has matched it, what was the action taken, what was session ID, and all those details, right? You can use this magnifier class also to verify more into it, right? Look for the details for a particular log in a much more granular manner. All right, so there are multiple use cases of having URL filtering. So one of the use case would be to perform web content filtering. So I can say the use cases for URL filtering. One of the use case, of course, it is web content filtering. That means it will prevent the access to any non-work related sites or sites known for some malicious contents, for any sort of regulatory compliance of your organization that you want to meet. So where you can go and enforce policies to comply with corporate or any industry specific regulations by restricting access to any inappropriate content. And also you can meet the productivity management, which means that you can block access to any categories that could reduce employee productivity during the working hours, such as gaming or social media pages, right? All right, so this is a very important profile, and it is integral part of your Palo Alto's security framework, which enables any organization to rightly balance the user access and security, while it will provide any detailed insights into the web usage, and it will also support for continuous monitoring and continuous adjustments. by updating its database always. So I hope it is clear regarding the concept of URL filtering. Yep. So please practice it. If there is any queries, you can reach back to us. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video.